Okay, how's everybody doing? So this is a little bit of a track laying update. I figured that, you know, just the style that I'm into right now, building like a sort of out of the tutorial kind of phase and into the more sort of, layman's work on the track, which I really like to plug into. And sometimes it's difficult, to really plug in if you're distracted a lot and so on. So, but I want to keep you in the loop and keep you updated. Like this is module B, right? And I want to talk about a few changes that I've made. I've sort of deviated from the plan a little bit. You can see Big Bend over there is all done now, pretty much. In fact, all the track for Module A over there is all pretty much laid now. Okay. But what I want to talk to you about is track variation or track code. And I mentioned earlier, when I was really excited about this layout, in the same way that I still am, that I wanted to have a section that I could model the variation of track. Like the main track or the main line is code 70. Like most of the track and all the turnouts I've built are code 70, except for this one that I just built yesterday, code 55. Now I talked earlier about running a siding of code 55 kind of in the weeds kind of look track, and I'll talk about these ties in a second here. But then when I was sort of how you're into your layout and you got your own space and you just start getting creative and thinking things through. That's what I love about this hobby is you can make revisions on the fly and develop new ideas. And I want a kind of a vignetted scene here because to the left over here is going to be a big grove of trees tentatively right now. So there'll be a separation from the barge slip waterfront scene to this transitional scene, which eventually will go down this way to the shops, but that's for another discussion. But I want to talk about this area because I want to be able to walk up to this area. Like I love the look of multiple tracks, especially when you have some of your favorite locomotives or rolling stock. You don't have, like I don't have a lot of rolling stock, but this rolling stock I do, most of it is really, really good stuff, right? Like Tangent and, I have a few Walthers, um, stuff, some Atlas and, a sampling of just about everything. Not everything entirely, but, I like a few really high end cars and locomotives as opposed to the larger roster, because it's just appropriate to how I want to model the shelf layout. But I want to be able to, like, I love to model like a scene as I would see it in the real world if I walked up like off a road somewhere or into an area and just saw track. And just, like I just love track. I love to model track. I think it's an important model in the model railroading genre is track, right? And it's a lot of fun to get into it, to scratch, build, and to model different codes and variations of track. And I always wanted to do that with this layout. But I think what I'm going to do is take it even further. Like this section right here, because I have so much rail. I mean, I could have laid this whole layout with just like the whole thing hand laid if I wanted to. I have enough rail. I got code 83, I got code 70, code 55, code 40. I have a lot of code 40 from my N scale days. And it's not entirely unusual to see like 40-pound rail, in this case HO scale, on a short line. I did some research on the ferry approach on Vancouver Island as part of SRY. And they have some sidings there that are just grown right in, covered in moss and everything. And it looks like it's probably 40, 50, or 60-pound rail. I'm not really sure. But, when we're modeling things like that, we cheat a lot of things. Like people will even run a code 100. And, by the time they paint it and ballast it, it looks smaller in profile, which is what we want, right? We don't want the rail to be too dominant a factor when we run trains that are sort of semi-fine scale, right? But anyway, in this case, what I've decided to do here is I'm going to make all my ties for this siding here, which is going to be code 50, because this turnout now is transitions from code 70 to code 50, And then this stays code 50 all the way through this module and down. All right, over to module C eventually. Okay. And let me just zoom in a bit here for a second. Okay, so you can see what's going on here. So you can see the difference here. Code 70, code 55, code 40. And yes, you can run cars, and some locomotives will run on code 40 if you use micro spikes, like the really, really tiny ones by Micro Engineering, which I have, which I'm going to do. Because I don't really care if this track ends up being reliable to run on. I'll make it so that I can crawl onto this with maybe a switcher or slide a, maybe a flat car or something you can have sitting here. But I really want this track to be down in the weeds. I really want that look. Like when I come up, I want to have some high grass growing here, I think. And then just this transition from 40, 55, 70. I want that to be evident. So that's what I'm doing here. And then you can see the ties. So for the ties, what I've used is hard balsa wood that I found. You can get balsa wood that's actually quite hard, almost like basswood qualities. So I found this at the hobby shop fairly cheap, and it goes a long ways. And then, of course, these are plastic ties that I cut from 60 by 100 thou. So you can do an HO scale standard gauge with this kind of tie spacing, which is a bit wider on the lighter code rail, up to 4 feet. So for $5 to do 4 feet of track is pretty good when if you have just 2 pieces of rail, right? Like it works out to about the same price as Flex Track. And these are all scribed and they paint nice. I really like plastic. So what I'm done here is plastic, and then for the code 40, down in the weeds, really heavily overgrown sort of siding right here, like stub siding, is going to be really raunchy. But I want to think it through so I can actually have some integrity to it where I can run a car on there with, the small wheel sets, flanges or whatever. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do there. And with the balsa wood, look, I know basswood's the way to go. I've laid hundreds of scale miles of track with basswood in the back in the day, but I don't have any left, and I found this, and I'm going with this because I'm going to be able to sand this and create deviations in it and splinter it, and I really want to hack these ties up good. I glued them with carpenter's glue. These are glued with CA. But yeah, I'm really liking that. So I'm going to work on this scene for a little bit because it's part of the track laying for module A and B, and I really want to get most of it done before I go any further. And I'm liking what's happening here. And then it's just going to sort of end right about here. Okay. This track is just going to end here, and I'm going to have taller grass here. And this track will go to module C along with this one. But this one's just going to disappear because it's the fascia is right here, right? And it's just going to be a lot of high grass. So I just want this track to basically just disappear into the weeds. Okay? So that's my latest development right now. I'm going to have some fun handling some track with some spikes. I might have to drill the odd tie here for the spikes, but that's okay. Because this one siding I want to model and really weather these ties up nice, more extreme than just the sort of the main here, like the code 70. So this is one of the parts of the hobby that I really like to do. And I want to encourage some of you to try it as well, to try to hand lay a piece of track. It's really not difficult. And boy, does it ever look good. And one of the advantages of just laying ties like this is you can actually ballast it first and sand it and get it all nice, and even put grass in here, and then lay your rail down, spike it down last. And you don't have any issues with buildup of ballast in the rail, and you know what I mean, how it can get ugly on you. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you, okay? I'll just zoom back again just so you can get a better look at it. So, track variations and different codes to get that look, that railroady look.